2016. And the mission for our nonprofit is building a global community of support for clean energy. I love the idea of clean energy, and we also obviously have a focus on nuclear. And so who we are is mothers, women, believers in a clean and just future. So that's what we want, that's what we hope for the future. There we go. So I was raised in Bluff MfN, Arizona. It's a mining town. And I grew up with not many resources, a water well that didn't produce very much, no air conditioning, in the Arizona desert. It was pretty hot, wood burning stove. I had a very minimalist way of life, and my parents were kind of hippie tree huggers, and I thought I was going to save the planet by convincing everyone else to use less energy. And I gradually got frustrated with that because I went away to college and couldn't convince my roommates to turn the lights off or save water or do any of those things that I thought were important. So I got a degree in engineering at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and kind of thought I might use engineering to help the world solve some of those problems. And after I graduated, I happened upon a job at the nuclear power plant, Diablo Canyon, that Scott was just talking about. I was very skeptical about it and fearful even. My uncle was a physics professor, and he had told me some pretty scary stories about people breathing in hot particles and getting cancer. And my mom was like, I don't think you should work there during your reproductive years. And I was like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? So I was pretty scared of it. That's me with Diablo Canyon looking down those 7 miles of coastline in the background there. I love nature and I love hiking. But so I had worked there for about 6 years, kind of relentlessly asking questions before I was like, okay, I think nuclear is okay. It might be kind of amazing. So it took me a lot of years and a lot of questions, having access to all those people that worked at the plant and had really good knowledge before I was able to kind of change my mind about nuclear. So I work in operations at Diablo Canyon, and I was a reactor operator, so it's kind of running the plant, and now I write procedures for operators. So that's a little bit about me. And here's Fershte.
Hi, I'm Fershte Bank. I also work for Mothers for Nuclear. And I grew up in Surf City, USA, that's Huntington Beach, California, southern coast. And I learned a lot about conservation. I spent time, riding my bike in our wetlands and at the beach. And I really grew up really wanting to help my community, the people around us, and the planet, but I really wasn't sure how. I didn't know how I was gonna do that myself. I went to school and studied physics at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, up on the Central Coast, just out of interest, and it was about 2 years into my degree that I learned that physicists can work in the energy industry, and I knew about climate change, and I knew that we needed more energy and electricity, and I was really excited that maybe me, as a scientist, I could help the world around me by getting into the energy industry. So I picked up a minor in Indigenous Studies of Natural Resources and the Environment so that I could understand the world around me better. And if I'm worried about how energy infrastructure affects our environment, I want to learn from our Indigenous people how our environment works. So with that background, over time, I started to learn about our different energy options, learned more about nuclear, got really excited about nuclear, met Heather, and got really excited about Mothers for Nuclear specifically, and our unique message and communication style when it comes to nuclear energy that I hadn't seen before. So at Mothers for Nuclear, what do we care about? That first picture on your left is the world at night. As you can see, there's large swaths of dark still. That's a lot of people who don't have access to electricity. Here in rural Utah, you might have friends or family that don't have the same access that I might have in the big city. And so energy access is really important for human quality of life. It's allowing us to have this presentation here in this wonderful air-conditioned building. It's important for hospitals, refrigeration for food and medication. We need it. But how do we get that? How do we do that? Our energy options have trade-offs like pollution and emissions that cause climate change, and we care a lot about the environment. As Heather said, this is an environmental nonprofit, and that's what we care about. So again, how do we get there? How do we get energy access to people while managing our environment? You know, all of these options have different trade-offs, right? So each community is going to need a different energy mix or a different energy option to meet their needs, and they're gonna have to make those decisions for themselves about what kind of risks they're willing to take for the benefits that they need.
So our biggest challenge is how do we kind of take these choices of different energies and bring people out of poverty, give a better quality of life with minimal impacts on the environment. So I mentioned I grew up in Globe, Arizona. So that's the middle picture, the copper mine in Arizona. That's my hometown. So that was my scenery growing up. You know, emissions from the stacks, lots of tailings piles, lots of blowing in the wind. I go back now and maybe view it with a little bit of a different lens, and it's impactful. All of these things that we do impact our health, and so when I see these, I want to know, you know, like what's the biggest like bang for our buck? How can we do this the most sustainably? We need these resources, and we have to, you know, balance how we're using our energy, where we get it from, what we use it for. And so with nuclear, like I said, I took a long time to kind of change my mind about it, but I realized this is my power plant. It's, you know, on this 14 miles of coastline. It's beautiful. It's like a nature preserve almost, driving to work every day. It's an industrial facility. It's a big power plant with big equipment. It's like this juxtaposition of technology and nature. It's really fascinating, but this one relatively tiny power plant makes 10% of California's electricity, which is amazing to me. So that's a huge benefit, and why I support nuclear energy. It checks all these boxes for me. Low life cycle carbon emissions. It's available around the clock at night when people need electricity, and it's proven and scalable. So there's a lot of nuclear around our country, which Lisa talked about earlier. So why I started Mothers for Nuclear. Lots and lots of years of questioning and skepticism before I was able to take all that information and kind of contextualize it and realize that nuclear is a great option. So I realized also working for the utility that we have a lack of digestible information to the public. You know, I can come up here and tell you how we run the plant, and here's radiation, and here's the levels that'll kill you, and here's the levels where it's safe. And it doesn't really mean anything for a lot of people. You know, it goes over people's heads. So we don't have good information. We have a lack of trusted messengers. There's not very many women in my industry. And fear-mongering from culture and media. What do you think of when you hear the word nuclear? Does anyone want to? I heard bombs from you guys earlier. Uranium, glowing green goo. The Simpsons. So I thought maybe I could help change the conversation by communicating about it differently. So that's a lot of what we do at Mothers for Nuclear. Here's some of the stuff that people think of when you hear the word nuclear. You know, Simpsons. Has anyone seen the China Syndrome? That movie came out the year that I was born, about a nuclear meltdown, and then we had one in our industry. So there's all this stuff that's kind of scary, and this is kind of like the perception that we're looking to overcome. And so Diablo Canyon, my power plant, I took all this time changing my mind about nuclear and kind of realizing that it was great. And then my company decided they were gonna shut down the plant. And I was like, what is happening here? And I realized that a lot of the challenges were about public perception and politics, and there is a lot of public support, but we were kind of silent. We were just kind of flying under the radar, operating very, like efficiently and safely, but not telling anyone about it because we don't want to, create any conversations, have any hard conversations. So a part of what we did at Mothers for Nuclear also is start having those hard conversations with people. So I want to hear like anything that you're scared about. I probably had those same fears also. Let's talk about it.
So we talked a bit about how we want to engage differently. And so what we mean by that is we want to engage like a mother. We want to be genuine and empathetic. We don't want to stand here and just give you facts about nuclear. We want to listen. Like she said, we really want to hear what your genuine concerns, fears, desires, understanding is. We want to ask you more questions and really truly understand. And we want you to know that we are genuinely here for you and we care about what you have to say. So some of the things that we've done, Heather started to talk about our first big campaign, which was Saving Diablo. But we do a lot of engagement outside of that. We go to climate and energy conferences frequently throughout the year, see what other people in industry are doing. We engage with the youth. The top left corner up there is me talking to some high school and college students at a conference earlier this year. The middle right is Heather and our other co-founder, Kristen, touring a school in Japan. And then we, of course, engage with legislators at the Capitol or at engagements like this in our CBS work. And we show up for Earth Day events, all kinds of things. We want to make sure that we're out there in the community talking and engaging with everyone. So why are we here with the Collaboration-Based Siting project working on spent fuel specifically? Historically, Mothers Nuclear as an organization didn't always address the fuel storage kind of end of the conversation. But over time, we've gotten a lot of questions about what about the waste? What are we doing with the waste or, the used fuel? And that's because I grew up watching The Simpsons too. It's been running for like ever. And, before I got a formal education at the end of my degree on what nuclear waste was like, I knew it wasn't what The Simpsons was showing me, but I didn't have anything to actually compare it to. So that's what we'd like to do, is we'd like to show you something you can actually compare it to. These are our friends, real women, standing next to real spent nuclear fuel. As Lisa explained a little bit earlier today, it's not green glowing goo at spent fuel itself. It's solid waste, and it's contained, really, really contained in these monolith kind of structures. That's Alyssa on the left. She's actually pregnant, standing next to that spent fuel. I know Heather's expressed that made her really nervous, but when you take the time to understand and learn, you can really understand the safety, and that's part of the importance of showing real people really engaging with this fuel.
Yeah, so I was the first ever pregnant operator at Diablo Canyon, and even then, my daughter's 16 now, but even, 16 years ago, I still had a lot of concerns about being out there. I was very careful about all these things that today I would not be worried about. And so even just seeing that picture up there, I'm just like, oh my gosh, emotionally I'm triggered. Like, what the heck is that girl doing, But the data says that it's okay. So we have to find a way to balance those kind of hard narratives between what does the science and the data say and what do we feel and how do we help those come together.
Here's another example of what spent fuel storage looks like. At the right, that's San Onofre, I believe. And we got the tour, actually. I guess that's your left, sorry. But yeah, they're really well contained, organized steel and concrete structures. That's what it looks like in the real world.
So here's our workshops. We've been doing these for almost 2 years now.
Yeah, so this is unfortunately tomorrow will be our last engagement, but we've been going around the country and engaging with people. That's what we want to do, and so this is the collaboration-based siting workshop we learned a little bit about today, and yeah, we just want to be here and have genuine conversations with you, and we're going to have a little Q&A after this, and then a lot more time after lunch this afternoon to really engage. So what's next, right? As people, as an organization, us, we have a lot of work to do. The whole country, the whole world, our individual communities really need to decide what we need to provide for each other and to care for each other, to protect each other and this world that we live in. And so each person, each individual's voice really needs to be heard in this process as much as possible so we don't make the same mistakes that we have in the past. We want everybody to really be engaged as possible. Again, that's why we're here today. We really want to truly engage with you and make sure that we're taking your words and your feedback back to the federal government so that they actually listen to us.
I'm just gonna share one more thing too. I don't know if you guys noticed me being a little distracted up here. My watch is like going off like crazy, and I'm like, who is calling me as soon as I start doing this workshop? It's my emergency response organization over at Diablo Canyon. I'm on the emergency response team there. I'm not on call right now, and it would take me a while to get there. But we have practice drills every once in a while and every week where we have to answer the phone and say how close we are to the plant. Are you ready to report to site if necessary? So when I first started at Diablo and I was an operator, I was one of those people that's like, I'm gonna jump in my car and get as far away as I can. Like if anything happens there, I'm out of here, I'm leaving. But now I'm like, I'm gonna go straight to the plant. I'm gonna be the first one there. I'm gonna help keep everyone on site safe. And I promise my community that nothing that we ever do out there could ever hurt you. And that's something that took me a really long time to realize. So that's how much I've shifted over 21 years. It's been a long time. So thank you so much. These are real mothers and women who also support nuclear. We're here for you. We want to be a resource if you have questions or if you want to talk about your feelings. Thank you. We'll take questions.
Not a question, but a comment.
Okay, that too.
Here on Navajo, we fight jurisdictional issues. We, on the response time, is anywhere from 2 days, 3 days, and we don't act right then and there because of jurisdictional issues.
For emergency response?
Yes, and the state line separates us. Our internal jurisdictional service areas, they intertwine, like for Mexican water. If an incident happens, my community lies within Arizona and Utah. If anything should happen east side of 191, we have to contact Shiprock, New Mexico for public safety to respond. If you live on the west side of 191, you call Kayenta District for response. But if you're in past a little over where I live, you will have to call Chinling. So even the same way with our utility. We're all being pulled different ways, and if we have shortage on public safety. Federal government doesn't give us any money, very limited money, and you're telling us about building trusts. That trust is nowhere near and rebuilding. And even this uranium, we're educated, but in our own language, very hard to translate and make them, our elders, understand. And at my age, I've seen the pandemic come through. When I was a little girl, my grandmother used to talk about how these disease had wiped, home, families, and didn't know what it was. I mean, I saw firsthand what COVID-19 did to my community. It really had a mental strength on me. Therefore, I had to retire. I can't handle it anymore. So with that, I think our elders are they've gone beyond that, and even our government doesn't even, they have no transparency. They don't have any, they don't show us accountability. And that's why to rebuild and earn the trust is a long ways for us. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, yeah, I've been seeing firsthand today and yesterday how much work we still need to do. When we talk about this process with the Department of Energy, we make a big effort to make sure that we're learning lessons from other countries like Canada. When they cited their deep geological repository, they engaged with the communities for almost 20 years before they had any decision making. And so we need to take the time, because your concerns are heard and they're real and they're valid. And like you said, we have a lot of historical wrongdoings and just not taking the accountability and responsibility for our citizens that we should. And for the sovereign people within our country that are our neighbors that deserve help and respect as well. So yeah, we really believe in taking the time to listen, and thank you again for sharing.
That sounds really confusing, your reporting structure. I'm sure you guys, city officials here, are aware of that. I don't know what can be done, but it's great that we're talking about it. Thank you for sharing.
Good morning, everybody. Hi, my name's Lucinda Tonchi, and I'm the chapter manager at Mexican Water Chapter under our president, Martha Sagpoy. And my question to you is, I know you're working at that Diablo plant, and you've been there, like you said, many decades. So what I'd like to know is, how are you engaging with the native people there, and what sort of message and collaboration has occurred through that? And if you would speak to that.
Oh. Well, yeah, so Scott's our native tribe there, and I'm not sure exactly when you came in, if you heard his full presentation, but a lot of his tribal members do work at the plant. So one of them came to me actually a few weeks ago and said, Heather, I know you're doing this Mothers for Nuclear thing. Can you help share with me some resources about nuclear energy that I can share with my tribal elders? And he's eager to help as a nuclear worker, share what he knows with his tribal groups.
Yeah, just what I would like to know, not as a worker in your plant, I'm talking about in a from the federal standpoint, from the tribal leadership to that area. How are you collaborating?
I can probably give you several examples of how we are working together, and as I mentioned earlier, why we have kind of a really close relationship with PG&E. I have a personal story. My ancestry goes to a village site that's actually 2 miles south of Diablo Canyon Power Plant, and I can trace my lineage to that specific site. Well, what's interesting, in 2018, with partnership with our tribe, with PG&E and Cal Poly, we won a governor's award for essentially reestablishing or identifying that village site. That's a point of collaboration. We also mentioned earlier that there was the decommissioning panel. They reached out to our tribal group, said you have to be on the panel. I was appointed to be on the panel. That's all the discussion and relationship that we're trying to work together. We also have an opportunity to get land back, which we're a landless tribe, and we have been working with PG&E about that, trying to meet each other's needs as far as getting land back. So we have been out to the site many times. We've had different dignitaries come to do visits. I can remember a group of state people came PG&E asked our tribal group to meet with them and give them a little bit of connection and history about the overall area. We have a really good working relationship. We also have some really strong relations with the local governments, the counties and the cities. They kind of know who we are, and they kind of respect our opinion. You know, it's like anything else. Maybe it doesn't always go our way, but we're definitely in the room, and that's really important.
Are we answering your question? I heard you say something about federal and directly related to Mothers for Nuclear and not being a plant worker, or?
I'm talking about in regard to the actual nuclear facility that you
Okay.
have here, how, you know, there had to be some sort of collaboration with the tribe. I'd just like to know
Okay.
if that
So
was.
does that help, or?
Yeah, in a way it did, yeah.
And we can definitely have a more in-depth conversation and try and give you the information you'd like later after lunch too.
Yeah.
Yes, Talia?
So I want to add to that because, sorry, I don't talk as loud.
I'm pretty loud.
So one of the nuances and one of the things I'm working on in the county is the way that our county is set up. There's layers and layers and layers of conversation that have to happen. And what the biggest disconnect and gap that I'm seeing is they're not passing the information on either way. And so that means that for me as a county, like I am trying to be in each of those layers to make sure we have those conversations and connect them. And it is difficult. I think it's going to take a long time. And on top of that, I'm learning different systems, right? So different government systems and how they work in their process. And I have to thank Martha because she walks me through. I'm like a child in some ways. But I think as we connect those layers, that's going to be really important. And then that's just the government. But then there's the companies that are coming in. Who do they talk to? Who are they connecting with? And who is keeping them at bay from talking to us as citizens? Or is it us as citizens and our fears that are doing that? And we just don't have these spaces, to be honest. And I know that it may not be comfortable because we're going to have those conversations. On the other front too, even though we keep talking a lot about Navajo Nation because it's like 50% of our county, I have the cities here too, because what we forget is that there's issues that come across the whole county that we can address, and some of them is just being informed of what's a problem. Because in fact, we had a meeting yesterday. One of the things that they said, you better bring this up today, Talia, was how fast people are driving with the trucks and the semis, and they had all these great ideas, and I was like, that we could have a solution for. But I don't live out there. I'm not experiencing that in the same way. And the stories were very powerful. And you know what's funny was that yesterday we had our tribal relations listening session. Well, I was out in the parking lot and someone called and said, can I come? And I was like, no, that's on Saturday. You can come on Saturday. And she said, well, I'm going to tell you. And it was the same exact story. So that's the thing that's important, is that we can figure out these things as we're talking to each other, because I cannot figure out the legislation, right? That's a different layer. We can work on it, but on the local level, the practicality of how we're living. And I think that's part of the healing process of being heard and having it immediate. So that would be what my comment is for that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Talia.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have right now for questions. Happy to chat with you over breaks and lunch and stuff. We're going to turn it back over to Lisa.
Hello, I'm back. I'm enjoying and understanding the various perspectives, and keep the questions coming, and keep the questions coming as well. And we'll have more time during break as well as lunch to continue the conversation as well. I wish we had more time to answer literally all the questions that are out there, but just keep in mind that we have lunch hour as well, that we can continue the conversation. Some new individuals have come, welcome. And it's time for us to take a look at the next survey. Thank you, Tanika. I was gonna go look for the clicker. So in your email, in the subject line, it would say second survey. If you need a paper copy, just put up your hand and we'll make sure to get that to you as well. And then when you're finished with the second one, we're gonna take a short break, right? So, there are refreshments in the back, the restrooms are just through the exit sign. But first, remember, complete the second survey for us, so that when we come back, we're coming back to the next, piece of the puzzle, so to speak, that is coming from Robert Hayes. So in way of timing, let's say 11 o'clock to come back, just to give ourselves some time to finish the survey and then also stretch. If you don't find it in your email, we'll give you a paper copy. If you search, excuse me, if you search for, in the subject line, second survey. But if you don't find it, I can get you a paper version. Do you need me? Got it, perfect, thank you.
I freaked out now. Is it because it was ringing so much? Yeah. Sorry. Thank you.